Venture Vault presents Behind the Scenes of the Verity Manor Haunting. Hello, fiendish friends, and welcome to some behind-the-scenes footage and interviews on the Verity Manor Haunting side quest special adventure vaults. We had some scheduling things happen, so that's why we're bringing you this special episode today. Right now, I'm interviewing our player and guest and our artist, character artist, C, who is joining us today for a little interview about art, about their character, Father Ox, and about other projects that they might have. Hi, C, how you doing?
Hi, Cora. I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to answer some questions. I told my housemate earlier that I was doing an interview, and they're like, "Oh, good luck." And I was like, "Oh, wait, this is like maybe the first time I've ever done a non-job interview." So I'm excited.
There's no way to fail. It's very informal, and I am not a journalist, so
I got the job, is
you
what
got the
matters.
job. You're already cast in the show, and you're already doing the art for the show, so you already won. There's no way to lose here. You could leave right now, and it would be a good interview. But please stay.
It's not bye.
No, don't. We have fun here, everyone. Yeah, so I'm just going to throw some questions at you, if that's all right.
I'm so excited.
Absolutely, good. So the first one is really just about going back on topic for the Verity Manor Haunting. You play Father Ox for this. Can you tell us what your character creation process was and what was the general inspiration for Father Ox?
Yeah, definitely. Father Ox, I wanted to challenge myself a little bit, like especially if it was, since we're doing like a kind of closed campaign, like multi-session one-shot series. I was like, okay, like that means that I can kind of play a character that I could have like a little bit more difficulty, or one that like doesn't come so close to my actual personality. And I was like, okay, like we're in a haunted estate. This is a person that would have to have been invited by Theodosia. Who could it be? And Connie, my partner, and I were talking, and Connie was like, yeah, I think I want to play like the haunted one, you know, like I want to play somebody who like has had a demon inside them before. And I was like, interesting. What if I played it? Like, it was just kind of like, I was just kind of spitballing, and I was like, what if I played the exorcist that exorcised your demon years ago? And then it was like, oh, well, holy shit, I have to do that, right? And I think a lot of Father Ox's inspiration is like very like sitting somewhere between cowboy and disgraced exorcist, which is really, really fun. I was watching a lot of, oh my God, Westworld at the time, the first season of Westworld. And I don't like the character, and I don't think Father Ox is based off of this person, but the black hat cowboy was like, I think like stylistically a bit of an inspiration. And I was like, okay, that could be something. And then there is like, I can't ever actually pinpoint a character that I've drawn Father Ox off of, but I know they exist, you know, like yeah. And I was also interested in kind of like in terms of like the disgraced aspect of the exorcism, or like the exorcist. Like, I think that there's something, I study monsters a lot in my free time. And I do a lot of research on them artistically.
Yes, and I'm just going to put in here that shout out to Transplanar RPG, from which I first discovered C and Connie. C plays a monster hunter on Transplanar RPG, Oka, and it's very, very fun and a very different personality than Father Ox. So that's just my little side shout out and fanning out about that show.
I think the thing about me is that I can't not play a character that has some relationship to monstrosity, and I think that's like part of my own transness and like my interest in research. But I was like, okay, like there's something that I understand about monsters and monstrosity and like evil and darkness. Like evil and darkness, you know, is Toni Morrison has lots of really beautiful things to say about that. But seeing it so much changes you. Like it changes who you are too. And it doesn't necessarily make you bad or evil, but it just changes you. So I was really interested in playing Father Ox, like not as like a man of purity, but as a man who has seen too much darkness to the point where he is really good at identifying it because he knows it too well. And it's like an intrinsic part of him, kind of in the way that like he can't escape it, you know, even though he has tried to, it's like, it's a part of him. And he like understands that it's like a question of like destiny and self-choice, I guess. You know, like he can choose, you know, to step away from it as much as possible, but when it comes down to it, like his destiny is to be really good at like identifying exorcisms and like fighting the darkness because it's so deeply a part of him.
I think it's so interesting in that there are many people, like myself included, who are attracted to darkness and objectively evil things, and because they're fascinating because we cannot fathom them. And especially for characters, I find that there's this there's two types of attraction to darkness, and those are the people who are participating in it and the people who choose to actively fight against it. And I very much see that some people are drawn to both and then have to make that choice. And I think Father Ox made that choice early on of, this is fascinating because I want to fight it and I want to make sure that it doesn't exist, but it still is interesting.
Yeah, it's like not so much a question of like, I am fighting demons because demons are evil and I am good. It's like, I'm fighting demons because I'm good at it and I have to protect the people around me. You know? And it's like using the tools in your toolbox, even though sometimes they are like weapons set against yourself in some ways, or like, and I'm trying to play with that. And the thing about me too is that my favorite genre of story is tragedy. I know it's super, super important to me that like queer people have happy endings, you know, and it like is just really important. But in like, if I can step away from like the general culture of like, you know, all the fucked up things that like cis straight writers do to trans people, and like gay people and queer people, I can be like, actually, I really like tragedies. Like I really like them and I'm really fascinated by them. And I think, you know, hopefully, unless Cora TPKs us, I'm hoping that like Father Ox does get a happy ending, but it's kind of twinged with something bittersweet, you know, something that like, yeah, it's just something that I really like.
I'm very big into the idea of earning your happy ending. I don't think any story, including queer ones, can happen unless there's conflict. Otherwise, it's not a story. It's like just a day in the life character piece.
Yeah.
You know, if there's no conflict, there's no actual story. And I think that a lot, like justifiably by the horrible things that happen in our day-to-day world, I completely understand that a lot of queer people might want a very safe place to just be happy and joyful in, because it's so rare that we get those glimpses in those safe places. But I also very much have feelings of like, you know, bad things happen, and in a story, if they don't happen, there's nothing to move towards. Like, how do we know what happiness is unless we know what tragedy is?
Sure.
So while I totally respect that a lot of people think that, like, and get reasonably upset of like bury your gays as a trope, no one is safe, because in my world of Persephomer, the concepts of good and evil are different, and I've very much been explicit, especially in our early talks of like safety, that transphobia and homophobia just do not exist in this world. They just are not a concept that has occurred to anyone.
Yeah.
It's just very much like that doesn't matter and that's not relevant. So while there might be forces of, there's no real objective good or evil, but there are people who do what we would describe as evil things, but morality is very different than what we've grown up in here, because it's not it's not flavored with like necessarily Western ideas. Obviously it's going to be Western influenced because I'm white and the product of my own culture. And I think I described it as like Victorian or American Gothic kind of theming. But it doesn't have the morality system in which we've been raised in. And that was very important to me to bring into this. So
Yeah.
Sorry, that's kind of a weird tangent going off of
No,
that.
totally.
But I totally
totally
see Father Ox as like this very American Gothic, Southern Gothic inspired character. And one thing when you were pitching your idea initially, I think you talked about, it's like, oh, I love all of these concepts from that. And you specifically mentioned, oh, I love things like the Haunted Chapel and the Devil at the Crossroads. And you mentioned that, spoilers for episode 5, I'm going to mention this right now, like you should not be watching this if you have not gotten to episode 5 yet. We have encountered a devil at the crossroads. And I really was like, when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, it's interesting that you say that. And I didn't elaborate more.
I think I remember you being like, oh, I really like that too. And now I'm like, Cora. Yeah. But just to like go right back to kind of what you were saying a second ago is that like, when I create my characters, like I'm not creating their, like I'm not creating their complexities based on the fact that they hate themselves because they're queer. Like Father Ox is a trans man, but it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It matters because it matters to me, but it doesn't matter to the world. Like, that's not the reason that he like is troubled in a lot of ways. He's troubled because he's pulled demons out of innocent people, and he's like seen the fire and the to put it in his words, the fire and the brimstones. And here's Cricket.
Hi, Cricket. Hello.
Cricket. Thank you for that.
I don't know if you saw the episode, but where Bao Bao visits Connie in an episode, and I joke about like, oh, Bao Bao pulling focus, Connie just, oh my goodness, I'll take Bao Bao, and I'm like, no, leave it. And I've definitely left in the episode where I'm like, no, cats are welcome here.
Cats are allowed. Cricket, are you ready for your interview?
Hello. So Cricket, what are your thoughts on the campaign thus far?
Yeah. Cricket, do you have any thoughts?
Fascinating. Amazing. Always a welcome guest, Cricket. Anytime.
I think my last piece of, inspiration for Father Ox would be my own experience. In cults. Not necessarily in cults. This is a weird way to put it. My dad grew up in a cult. He was raised in the Church of Scientology. My grandfather, who I had never met before, was a Scientologist until he died. Wow. And there's some cult history in my family, is maybe what I should say instead. And like the cult of Scientology really kind of is the kind of like, you see the evil in yourself and you see the evil in the world and you purge it from yourself kind of situation. And I was really, to talk about like your world of gray morality, that like the place that Father Ox comes from is not necessarily like the keepers of order. Like how exactly can that be turned on its head in a way? And like what kind of damage do you do by trying to control things? Because I think control is like a really I think control is like really at the root at a lot of like systemic issues, like culturally.
Absolutely.
Like the need to control other people's bodies, the need to control the way that people express themselves, the need to control nature, so much so that you change it intrinsically for the worst.
Yeah.
So I think that's like my final. So we have a little bit of cowboy, we have a little bit of Southern Gothic, and we have a little bit of cult escapee.
Yeah.
Going all into Father Ox.
Fascinating. I love it. Thank you so much for coming up with the creation of Father Ox. I think he's so understated, but has such presence. And I think everyone's expressed how much they love that about him. And I think it's great.
Shucks.
Yeah. Let's talk about your impressions of the campaign thus far. So we are on episode 5. Again, we mentioned before, don't watch this if you haven't gotten to episode 5 yet. But yeah, what are your impressions of the campaign? This also, I had to mention this to some other people interviewed. This is not me fishing for compliments. This is very much like, how are you enjoying it? What are your experiences with the other cast members? Stuff like that.
It's honestly been really, really great so far, and like genuinely just like a lot of fun. Because I really like puzzles and I really like lore, and I think that something that this campaign does really well is lore and the general puzzle of it, like because it's like it would be really easy to be like, oh yeah, the haunting of Bly Manor, or the haunting of the Verity Estate. Whoops.
It's what I think of too.
I know, it's what happened to me. It's like, oh, there's ghosts there. They're ghosts of the people who died there. Da 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 da. But no, there's like something going on, Cora. I know that there's something going on, and it's a little bit deeper than that. Mm-hmm. And I'm satisfied by the fact that we haven't quite found it out yet, but we're like really close to something. We're really close to something, and we've like almost made it. We're almost there.
You're getting there. You're quite close stumbling across everything. Mm-hmm. Father Ox in the last episode reading that book. And thank you so much for allowing the pacing of like, oh, you read for an hour, this is what you get in an hour's reading from this depth, like this tomb of knowledge. Like, oh, yeah. I'm glad that you were just like, well, I read the book. And it's like, no, that's not, you're not going to get any knowledge that way.
It's like I have an hour worth of reading in me before Father Ox is going to fall asleep because he's an old man.
Mm-hmm. And falls asleep. I love that bit where you're like, falls asleep in the chair.
Like a dad.
Yeah, very dad-like, very good. So thank you so much for allowing the pacing of that to happen and embracing the mystery of the story, because that's one thing I love to build into my campaigns. D&D, as I think we mentioned outside of the podcast, is not necessarily great for mysteries. There are things that I like about the mechanics of it, but there's so much to be said for other homebrew systems that I really just kind of altered this in my own way, adding to D&D mechanics, which is what they do a lot on Transplant RPG, which once again, I'm going to say everyone should go check it out because it's amazing storytelling. Connie is the GM and is fantastic, and she is a fantastic player. And there are some lovely other wonderful players as well. And that's a great segue into our next topic, which is you also do the art for Transplant RPG, and you've done the character art for all of our characters and for NPCs that some people haven't even seen. I'm probably going to do a little slideshow of that coming up over our audio. But what was, while we've kind of collaborated and I've provided inspiration for some of the characters, a lot of the players have provided feedback on what they think their characters would look like as well. How do you approach your art? How do you work with people when you take commissions, which your commissions are open? So please shout out your contact information right now.
Oh, Cora, thank you. My commissions are, I'll just do that really quick. My commissions are open right now. You can find information about them on my Twitter at PiSharpArt, and that's PiSharpArt.
It'll be written. It'll be written. Don't worry.
It'll be written. But I also can't spell. That was embarrassing. That's okay. I'm just gonna move on. You can also find me on Tumblr at PiSharp, same spelling, pi-sharp at Tumblr. So my commissions are open. I only started doing digital art in November of last year, so a year ago. So I'm still, there are some things where it's like rather inaccessible to learn how to do as like somebody who hasn't done digital art for a long time, where I'm like, what is cell shading? What is rendering? I'm not entirely sure still. But I'm just trying to playing with brushes and figuring it out and watching tutorials. And in terms of character creation, everyone in the campaign really gave a lot of really, really good image references too. And I was like, okay, I can really work with this. I can use photo refs and really be like, all right, this is how you want your nose to be a little bit. So to speak. But I think that there are something that I really take joy in is adding little details to different characters' portraits. And that's something I think that happened in Transplanter a little bit more than in this campaign specifically, just because people were like, yes, and here's the image reference for the clothes I want, and here's the image reference for like this, that, and the other thing. And it's fun to like, I think a lot of my joy comes in like playing with textures. And if somebody's like, oh yes, this character has a scarf, I'm like, okay, like I can really play with what kind of scarf you have going on here. And like I take a lot of joy in that. But I also like to add little trinkets if people aren't so specific, where like I added these like piercings to Dewey's hood and like a chain that runs over their like shawl, and a patch on Dewey's cargo shorts. And now it's like part of the like official art, and people are like really like taking the references that I made for those characters really seriously, which is rather enchanting. And when Max made their cosplay of Dewey, and added those things. You have to watch the Halloween episode.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't.
You have to watch it.
I was working.
We're all in cosplay, all of us.
I'm so delighted and enchanted. Everyone, please check out the Halloween episode, but also watch all the episodes first. Otherwise, you will not know what's going on. But definitely worth it.
Yeah. Or you can read our recap document.
That's true.
bit.ly/transrecap, which is fun. But yeah, like I think I take a lot of joy in adding little details to work, and sometimes I get kind of self-conscious because I feel like every time I do a commission, my art changes a little bit, and I'm like trying out new styles, still like trying to figure out what I like, and I'm like, oh, this looks like super different than the last commission I did last week.
Artistic growth and change.
It's a real joy to kind of like get into a swing of things. I think doing the NPCs pretty like close together, especially Adair, Flora, and Araya.
A family unit, which no one else has seen yet, but I'm going to bring it up in a slideshow. So yeah.
I like kind of did them all together. Like I did all their line art, and then I did all the coloring, and then I did all the like texture work for them, like kind of in like the 3 burst segments, I guess. And I was like, okay, like this is a really fun exercise in consistency, and in like still like growing into a consistent style. So, and I mean, it was like a pleasure. I was like, these references are great. From Cora, I was like, okay, like this is really clear. I can add some like nice texture to like specifically, you know, like the hat and the scarf and the like apron, and like how exactly they're looking, and like up, down, left, right. You know, I like detail, I think, in that way, where it's like, okay, like the little sums of like the tiny details can make a big difference for me, I think, when I'm doing art and designing characters, which I appreciate. It's really, really fun.
The details are totally gorgeous, and we'll make sure to do, as I was saying, a slideshow of the characters. And I guess because a lot of, we bring them up under our faces during the first episode and in subsequent episodes where they kind of appear. I don't think I've had like the full screen image of a lot of them, and I want people to love and appreciate the beautiful art that you've brought to this, bringing these characters and the NPCs to life in a way that I was so delighted to see. So thank you so much for doing that. What a wonderful artist to work with, and everyone should go commission C and give them money. Go do that. I think I have just 1 or 2 more questions. Playlists, part of a character creation process thing that a lot of people did was playlists, which for me, I am not at all musically inclined. Nina, which I don't know if a lot of people know this, Nina, who plays on the show, is actually my wife, and DJs in the car all the time because I have no memory for bands or song names or people. I'm a blank slate musically. So I cannot create playlists the way that other people do. While we're talking about music, shout out to Jude Alexander, who created the theme song for the Verity Manor Haunting. A beautiful thing, a Black genderqueer artist. Please support them. I will include their link to their Twitter right here. Commission them. They do wonderful work, and an amazing musician, beautiful voice as well. You haven't heard him sing, but it's amazing. I don't know anything about music, so please tell me about your playlist for Father Oggs.
Sure. Okay, this is gonna go in a direction. So a lot of the music that's on Father Ox's playlist. I'll first of all say that his theme song, so to speak, or like probably the piece of music that was most inspirational in creating him, is Blood in the Valley by Sons of Perdition. And like specifically in the middle of the song, there's this exorcist's voice who seems to be like preaching or performing an exorcism, and it's like a little while. It's basically it's like he like just starts shouting like "fuck you, Satan," which there's something about it that makes me laugh, and it's also just really interesting to me. So that's probably the theme song. You can bleep me out if you need to. I couldn't recall.
We swear all the time on this fucking podcast. Do not worry about it.
Podcast. Yeah. Fuck you, Satan.
Free speech, baby. Ever since I started listening to Mabim Bam, I've started adding baby into my speech here and there, and I do not like this influence that the brothers have had on me. It is not good, but that's just what I add to the end of a lot of sentences. I'm not calling anyone baby. I would not infantilize anyone that way. It's a general baby to the world.
Hey, yo, what's up, baby?
Hey, baby. I'm so sorry, everyone. I have derailed this. Please continue talking about your playlist.
That's okay. There was a random car alarm that happened outside. Anyway. Okay, so when I was 19, I went on tour with a theater company that was performing an original folk opera. And we would train, do like acrobatics training and experimental theater training to a lot of experimental folk songs that also had operatic influence, which is to say that I have a lot of songs similar, like in the vein of like dark folk, I guess is what I might call it. So I was really like, okay, like that's the most Father Ox playlist I can think of. So lots of like Silver Mount Zion, Goodnight Texas, you know, like Johnny Cash is on there, Charlie Parr, Mississippi Shakes, you know. So that's definitely the like Louisiana dark folk is where I wanted to go with that the most.
Beautiful. I think that's very fitting and so fun, and really sets a tone for who Father Ox is and his very studied, slow speech and light Southern drawl that you bring to it. It's really, really lovely. Final question before we go into a slideshow of your beautiful, beautiful work. It was, do you have any questions for me about the campaign that won't reveal anything that you otherwise wouldn't know, but just because I was like, I guess it's an interview and it's weird to interview yourself, so have at it.
I'm ready. Are folks at home ever going to be able to play through the Verity Manor Haunting on their own? Just wondering.
I have been toying with the idea of creating a module, and I think we've spoken briefly about it before, where I would love to have you do the character art, as you already have done the character art for many of the NPCs. It's something that I would like to work towards, and it's something that I have to discuss with the other Venture Vaultians about, like, how would we choose to market this? Would it be under Venture Vault? Would it be under my own IP, since I created the world in the module? So that's something we'd probably have to discuss. But ideally, it would be super fun to see other people play through it. I've actually run this campaign in different iterations twice before. It was originally written as a birthday campaign for Nina, as a birthday present for her because she loves haunted houses. And that was very different. It went very differently. At one point, there was a bunch of beautiful men in an oil puddle wrestling. So very, very strange. Yeah. I mean, Nina's not into men, so it was not for her. I don't. Very much a grade A lesbian, that one. But yeah, very bizarre turns. But a delight and fun. And then I ran through it with Jude Alexander, who created the music for this, actually played a character who ran through it with two other of my friends. And that one was super quick. Amazing rolls from Danielle, who played a character. And they ran through it in three-hour sessions. They were very driven, amazing high rolls. and just 3 people investigating. But I think it was because they didn't have, they were more focused on, we're going to solve this mystery rather than exploring their characters, which I think the beautiful thing about this podcast that I absolutely love is that everyone got their own important introduction to who they were. And we're discovering so much about everyone's rich characters and how that's all entwined in the Verity Manor mystery as well, and the histories and how that's affecting how they're making their discoveries. And that didn't happen in previous iterations. In previous iterations, we were just playing a game. It wasn't a performance where people were exploring their characters, and that's why it's taking longer. Full disclosure, this was supposed to end in October, and that's just not happening. It was just supposed to be a Halloween side quest. But thankfully, Venture Vault has given me the go-ahead of like, you know what, let's let this story be what it needs to be, and let's bring a little Halloween through November and enjoy ourselves and let the story breathe and be what it needs to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and that is such a joy.
It is.
Cora.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Yeah, I feel like I could talk for like so long about how amazing it is to play. This was like an earlier question about like, you know, like it is really such a joy. Like the character-driven play style of pretty much everyone at the table is really, really nice to work off of, because, you know, like you have like, I was like, okay, like this is who Father Ox is, and it literally, like, I don't care if I'm just like watching for an hour while there's like a heartfelt interaction between 2 characters where they're both growing. I'm like, that's TV, baby. That's what I want to see. You know, it's really, really great. And I guess,
let me tell you, as a DM, it is very nice to have everyone take the weight off of me and just do a full scene without any of my input and just only my occasional pokes and prods to. So back to the main story, but that was fun.
Speaking of, I have a question for you.
Oh yeah.
What is so far? What are some of your favorite scenes, or like what are some of your favorite choices or moments from the campaign? They could be about Father Ox or not. It's up to you.
Father Ox in particular, I've really loved the. Well, I'm just going straight to Father Ox is the physicality that you somehow bring when we are limited to this screen here, but describing the flips of the tails as his tail as he becomes intrigued, or how his ears flutter, or how the candle flickers on his horn. You bring a wonderful physicality to a very 2-dimensional media that we are interacting in. I think the physicality has been very strong. I loved during battle in episode 3, I think it was, where we're in the library and you discover that Dart is actually possessed, and you start walking towards Dart slowly and methodically and chanting, just chilling. And how Father Ox can go from this friendly father figure, like a dad, at dinner, just like chowing down on food, being relatively quiet, and then mentioning something offhand about his husband, saying that he's constantly knocking some stuff off the table, but then being like, there is darkness in this world and you should all be aware of it, is it brings humor and it brings seriousness at the same time. And that's exactly where I love to play on campaigns like this, where I find that I love darkness in a story, especially a haunting story, especially a story that has dark themes, but there needs to be that levity to bring it up. And I think that Father Ox has a wonderful balance of being a serious character, but having that playfulness as well. So I love those moments. Other moments that I've loved are the strange impetuosity of Choo Choo that Connie plays, of outright accusing people, and in this high society environment with people who are not at all used to that, who would very much never, certain things are just never talked about in certain realms of society, and you would never just go outright and say it, but like a more blue collar, lower class worker, chimney sweep that Choo Choo is just very blunt and says things like, I bet you killed that guy. I bet you, maybe your sister's being experimented on in the basement, or like just terrifying accusations that have no place at a proper dinner table, but have really gotten us some wonderful results, because it's shocking to people, and it's gaining a response that's gathering information that's so fascinating. So I love those quips from Choo Choo. I guess I'll just go back character by character. I love Richard's reveal of
oh my God.
the fact that Darthan is possessed by Father Dyecrest, and that moment where he literally takes off his mask off of his burned face, that kind of unleashes the powers of this dark spirit. It was such a amazing moment and a beautiful character choice on the part of Richard. I've worked with Richard before. We went to theater school together, and he's such a wonderful giving partner in that way, that he still surprises me, but in a way that truly makes sense for the story.
Yeah.
And Andrew brings a wonderful haughtiness, but also a sweet innocence with Aegon, his paladin, that I truly enjoy. The spin the bottle or intimacy bottle, as they renamed it, moment. I kind of instigated it being dogged and like pulling out a Ouija board, which I thought was on theme. But then I was like, you know what else happens at sleepovers? Spin the bottle. and so I thought, I'm glad that they ran with what might have been the less obvious choice, because it was funny. And again, it brings up that moments of lightness and levity. And working with Nina, I'm really biased given that I'm married to her. I totally love playing the hapless intern who's eager to please Doggett to Finola, who when Nina kind of pitched Finola, she's like, oh, I'd also like an assistant, almost like as an aside. And so we basically came up with the idea of this level 1 bard who's an intern / animal companion, essentially.
Yeah.
Who is just there to record Finola's exploits as she becomes a celebrity ghost hunter. And I think that was such a funny decision, and playing off of her and being so thankful that she continues to allow me to embarrass Finola by by saying strange things as Doggett, is such a gift and a wonderful interaction in this. And also having a character that doesn't have a tragic backstory, that's just genuinely like, I like ghosts and I want to hunt ghosts, and that's why I'm here, is really nice. Because there's so much other character work to explore that it's nice to just have someone who's like very driven and is like, I'm going to follow this mystery. This is all interesting, but this is why I'm here. And as a DM, that's a real gift to have somebody who's focused on the story, because as much as I love your character interactions and it brings so much to the show, there's a story I made that's sometimes nice to go back to occasionally. Yeah. So I think that's so many good moments. So it's hard to pick, but those are a few. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I think with that's a pretty good way to wrap up the interview. Let's go into a little slideshow of C's beautiful work. First, I'll do the PCs, and then I'll go into the NPCs, some of which we have not seen on screen yet. So we'll go into that, and then we'll go into interviews with some other cast members of the Verity Manor Haunting. And thank you so much for joining us today, C, and being so generous with your time and answers. It's truly appreciated, and you're a delight to have on the show.
Thank you so much, Cora. It was great to be here.
Good.